Wally's makes a point. Somebody has to pay the price to the Christian God, small g. And you're right. And they claim that the Jewish God is the one who's demanding and vengeful.
They created the need and supplied the cure for it.
Yeah. Convince you got a disease you don't have, and then tell you they're the only ones who got the cure. Jacob Frake, Bar Kochba,
Shabbat
Tzvi. Why weren't they the Messiah? Because they didn't do what the Messiah is supposed to do. Mm-hmm. Neither did Jesus.
Welcome to TaNaCh Talk. I'm your host, William Hall, broadcasting live out of Kingsland, Texas, USA, with another episode of TNT, the Twisted New Testament, or Why the Jews Do Not Accept the Messiah, or... You should keep writing. That's really a good thing. Yeah. How are you? Good to see you back.
Tired, but okay.
Good. Judaism and Christianity, A Contrast, would be his first book. He's got a book there present with him.
Oh, no.
What?
Nothing.
You think
At first, you were bubbling like you're talking water.
Don't like gargling underwater. That's bad. That could be bad for your health. That can be bad for your health. Okay, so the topic you mentioned is going to be Jeremiah 17:11. Yes?
7.
All right, so Jeremiah 7:11. And you said to shout out in chat, who's that? Robert Johnson, you said?
Yeah, Robert Johnson at 8:36.
Got it. Very cool. All right, well, there you go. So let's take off with Jeremiah 7:11 then.
All right, so he's referring to Jeremiah 7:11. We'll talk about what it says in a minute.
Okay.
And his question is, Jeremiah 7:11, outside of the simple understanding, could something like this be an allusion to Jesus? There is a few places in the prophets and writings that seem to do this. Jeremiah 7:11, outside of simple understanding, could something like this be an allusion to Jesus? There is a few places in prophets and writings that seem to do this. So the verse he's speaking of, which you sound familiar, okay, this is the cleaning out the temple or whatever. But Jeremiah 7:11 reads, "In this house, which is called by my name, become a den of robbers in your eyes. Behold, even I have seen it, saith the Eternal." So the issue is Jeremiah like doing a type or shadow or prophecy of Jesus? Because Jeremiah 7:11 also talks about the temple being a den of robbers. And Jesus basically says the same thing. So is Jeremiah alluding to, or a prophecy of, or what have you, of Jesus in this verse? And my answer is you got it reversed. What's happening is that the writers of the Christian New Testament, they didn't know Jesus. They never met him. In the beginning of Luke and the end of John, the author of Luke, the author of John, basically say, we're basing what we're telling you on eyewitness accounts and we believe them. But they themselves, the authors themselves, never met Jesus. Okay, Paul only had what's it called, revelation, miracle story, whatever, on the road. So none of the writers in the New Testament actually met Jesus. Didn't meet Jesus, didn't know what he said. All these stories are running around. They're interested in producing their own book, their own writing of what happened. And so they look around for things to say about Jesus. Well, what came before them? What would they base it on? If the Jews created this concept called Messiah, what are they going to look at? They're going to obviously look at the Hebrew Scriptures. So in the same way that blueprints tell the construction workers how to build a house, the Hebrew Scriptures act like blueprints to the Christian writers to tell them how to construct their stories. And it's not just this one line, made my house a den of robbers, okay? It's everything that Jesus quotes. We don't know anything about Jesus. We don't have any any information about Jesus except what we have in the Christian New Testament. So it's that the Christian writers chose verses in the Hebrew Scriptures that they would write into the mouth of Jesus to make it look like Jesus was either quoting it or to make it look like Jesus was fulfilling its prophecy, if in fact it was a prophecy. So these verses in the Hebrew Scriptures came first, and they become the blueprints to the Christian authors writing about the Christian God from their Christian religious perspective. So that's my answer. Jacob Frake, Bar Kokhba,
Shabbat
Tzvi. Why weren't they the Messiah? Because they didn't do what the Messiah is supposed to do. Mm-hmm. Neither did Jesus. Well, that's not exactly correct. There are plenty of people who continue to believe that the Messiah they thought was the Messiah continued to be the Messiah even after they died. You had a whole Jacob Frankist movement. You had Shabbatai Tzvi. I don't know that they exist today, but there used to be people who would say we were right. We just have to change the definition of Messiah to fit what they actually did. So whichever one it was who wound up converting to Islam, well, he had to. He had, as to be the Messiah, he had to convert to that religion and free the sparks in that religion or something like that. So, and if you take a look at When Prophecy Fails by Leon Festinger, I can think of these names like this, and some words just whatever. But
it's okay.
How do they react when their prophecy proves to be wrong? And it follows what the early Christians did right down the line.
Yep.
I believe in love. Do you believe? Michael. Well, maybe in 1884, Michael Friedlander didn't. This is Christo Cheney at 912. Maybe Michael Friedlander, didn't have the right text. Kathy Kennebeck at 911. You're totally right. Christians call actions works, and it's somewhat of a dirty word.
Oh, yeah.
You can't be saved by works. Really? Exactly what does it say in Jonah chapter 3? Jonah chapter 3, verse 10. And God saw their works, that they turned from their evil way, and God repented of the evil that he said he would do to them, and he didn't do it. So when he saw their works, what works? That they stopped doing the bad, God forgave them. I actually had somebody tell me, what are you talking about? They forgave them. They were punished later on. I said, what? What are you talking about? They were punished later on. Yeah, when Nineveh fell. Nineveh fell hundreds and hundreds of years after the events of Jonah. It couldn't have been the same people who actually did the sinning. What are you talking about? But that's what they said. That's what they claimed. So if you can't be saved by works, why does Jonah chapter 3, verse 10 explicitly say because of their works, turning away from their evil, that they were didn't get punished? So let's see. No, Lanham 28. This is 913, William.
Okay.
Lanham 28 at 913. Is the death of David's baby son due to his sin with Bathsheba an example of vicarious atonement? There's a really bad misunderstanding about vicarious atonement. What does vicarious atonement mean? It means somebody else gets punished, not me. It's not a misnomer to call animal sacrifice, okay, the lambs and the goats and the cattle and the whatever, as a vicarious atonement. Because if I accidentally sin, I can give a blood sacrifice to be forgiven. And it's the animal that gets killed instead of me is kind of like a vicarious atonement. The issue is human sacrifices, which God calls an abomination. God calls it something he hates. God says that it's so horrible, it wouldn't come to my mind to demand of people. So, and the death of David's baby, David is forgiven before the son even gets sick. My example is if one generation pollutes the earth and the next generation breathes it and gets lung cancer and then dies, does the death of the second generation remove the sin, get forgiveness for the sin for the generation that did the polluting? No. The issue is, can one person die for someone else's sin? And the Bible is explicitly clear, no. And God condemns human sacrifice. So when David's son died after his making the son's mother's original husband die in battle, okay, clearly Nathan the prophet rebukes him for it, but Nathan the prophet says, you're not going to die, you're forgiven, you're not going to die from this, but you're going to lose your son. And so it's a result of David's sin. It does not take David's sin away.
Plus, it tells you why in there. It says why he did it. It was to keep the chances of the other nations,
right? Because
from
the nations
would
would
the
have
name
been,
of Hashem.
They would have been saying, "Yeah, look at that king and his son. The son who'd be next in line for being king was out of this liaison with Bathsheba."
Yeah, which end result protected King David even more by doing that.
Right.
So rather than punishment. Yeah.
By the way,
granted it was,
William,
but
that's a good point. I've never realized that. You're right. The death of the son is to David's favor.
Mm-hmm. By the way, another topic just came up by Wayne Wright. He said, just for clarification, I just covered it up. Hang on.
Wayne Wright.
Just for clarification, it doesn't matter what you believe. What about Isaiah 43:10?
Right.
Favorite passage when arguing against the Trinity.
Right. It's a great one. Here,
you want to comment on it real fast? I'll actually add this to our main
comment.
Isaiah 43:10.
You are my witnesses, saith the Eternal, my servant whom I have chosen, that you may know and believe me and understand that I am he. Before me there was no God formed, neither shall there be after me. One of my favorite ones for a number of reasons. First of all, Isaiah 53, but it's singular. It's only about one person. You can't say it's about all Israel. Well, 43:10, you are my witnesses, plural, saith the Eternal, and my servant, which is singular, whom I have chosen. So in the same sentence, Isaiah speaks of the Jews, the people of Israel, in the plural, witnesses, but also in the same verse, same sentence, he speaks of the Jewish people in the singular as servant, and it's the same word servant in Isaiah 53. 10 chapters later, okay, it says, speaking of the people of Israel, obviously, that it says whom I have chosen, okay, and it also says, before me there was no God formed, neither shall there be after me, and yet Jesus was formed in the womb of Mary.
So that's a really good one right there.
He was right to point it out.
Yeah,
43:10 is one of my go-to verses. But it's only singular. Isaiah 53 is singular, so it can't be the whole people. Well, Isaiah 53:10.
Right.
Wally makes a point. Somebody has to pay the price to the Christian God, small g. And you're right. And they claim that the Jewish God is the one who's demanding and vengeful.
They created the need and supplied the cure for it.
Yeah. Convince you got a disease you don't have, and then tell you they're the only ones who got the cure.
Before we disconnect, I'm going to play this ad I just created.
Cool. A new ad?
Yeah. You going to watch it?
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. If you enjoy this channel and the content, and it has changed your life, or perhaps the life of a loved one or a close friend, would you please consider supporting this work? You can click this link and it'll take you directly to my website with a donate button. Or there's a Patreon link and a mailing address for snail mail if you would prefer. If you do donate, please do me a favor and leave me a phone number where I can contact you and thank you properly. I hope you all have a wonderful 2025. Shalom.